My name is Albert, so I'm currently working in Tokopedia as a product manager. That's actually the first time I said it because I've never done a single interview ever since. Ever since that, if you had asked me for my previous role, I would have said it like, oh, this sounded like I've said it before.
Right.
But that was actually legit the first time I said that. Yeah, I'm in this role for 6 months.
Albert has been like my friend since, I don't know, 2014. We graduated from the same university. Right after your graduation, you actually went to a consulting company called BCG, Boston Consulting Group.
As an intern though.
As an intern
Yes.
for a short while.
7 months, around
7
6
months.
to 7 months.
And before you actually jump ship to the startup field. And
Yes, correct.
this is where I say that you are a serial startup. You started in Traveloka,
Correct.
correct? And then you moved to Gojek.
Correct.
And then now you are at Tokopedia, which is why you mentioned just now at the start is that this is probably the first role where you didn't actually look for another role for a 6 month period.
Yep, that is very correct. And why that is funny is because these three are the only used to be the only unicorns in Indonesia.
It is actually.
Once upon a time. Now I think there are more.
Now
I
there are
think
more
there's
unicorns.
like 4 or 5. But
Yeah,
this was the original three. The original three.
So you literally went to the original Trinity unicorn based in Indonesia,
Yes.
right? And I mean, this is a very interesting experience. It's not intentional, but that also means that you have a lot of experience in this startup world
I guess so, yeah.
with different companies, not just one company, right?
Correct, yes.
So probably I just want to start in understanding like within these three companies that you have been with, what's the commonalities of the startup culture?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, they're a lot more laid back in your apparels. So I can basically wear like t-shirt, jeans.
Just like that, pretty much going to office.
Yeah,
right?
you can just wear very casually. You can wear NMD, Ultra Boost, and you will look very normal at work. In fact, if you wear shirt, you will look out of place. Yes, you look kind of like my first day when I moved from consulting to startup. My first day, I wore leather shoes
Oh my god.
and like shirt. And I completely felt out of place for the first day. And next day I just went straight to polo. Yeah, it's actually so casual. It's really very casual. I think that's the main difference. I think that's one of the first difference between corporate and tech startup. It's like it's a lot more casual. And
Does the casual actually affect how you perform or like how you interact with your
that's a good point.
colleagues?
I actually think it does. I think you feel a lot more casual when you work with your peers because you wear very casual. So it subconsciously makes you feel like you're out with friends.
like you're more like doing a project work, right?
Correct.
And then
Whereas if you had like the formal suit and tie, I think subconsciously you will put on a professional mindset as well. I think so. I'm not very sure,
Okay.
but actually maybe it does.
yeah, I think it definitely does. It definitely does.
Yeah.
I mean, even the language that we use at work, maybe via Slack and all that, is very casual. Even in
A
emails,
lot more
maybe formal emails you'll be formal, but then in Slack you'll say, "Hey bro, hey this."
frequently or
frequently.
yes. That'll be the main similarities. Second, this is unicorn only, right?
Yeah, startup culture.
Oh, startup in general. Because this part differs for a smaller stage startup and a more matured stage startup.
Yeah.
So if you're in the unicorn status, meaning you're $1 billion of valuation, you are considered a big startup already. And typically it's a huge difference in the way the culture is
Okay.
in a smaller one and a bigger one like a unicorn.
What's the contrast and the difference then?
The smaller startups, let's start with the big one. The big ones are a lot more structured. So they typically have been in the game for over 5 years. They already have a huge operation in their business.
Yep.
So meaning they have a lot more structure in place already. So they are a lot more essentially structured. Whereas you have your SOPs all in place, your best practices are in place as well. But in a smaller startup, it's a lot less structured. Sometimes your team can vary in the 50 people up to a few hundreds. Whereas in a unicorn startup, it's already in the thousands. So it's a lot bigger, so it's a lot more structured like a corporation actually. In a smaller startup, it's a lot smaller and it's a lot more lean, hence your work changes a lot.
But you have to take multiple hats.
Yeah, you have to take multiple hats.
That's for the smaller one.
Yeah, the smaller one. So if you're
Right.
hired for a marketing guy, you might have to do design, analysis, and even product work. So your work is a lot more, it's less defined,
Okay.
basically.
But then in a unicorn company, more matured startups,
Yeah,
they're already more defined.
correct. Yes, they have
And-
a system in place.
System in place, SOPs, all that. It really felt like you're working in MNC or SMEs pretty much
Most of
you
the
say
time,
that?
yes.
most of the time.
It varies in that, but in general, yeah, they are a lot more structured in general.
And what would you still say that, it's something that is inherent in this unicorn startup compared to, a normal corporation like an SMEs or MNCs, and also difference from smaller startups?
Oh,
The unique factor about unicorn.
Okay, that's a very good question. So as you have pointed out, it's similar to a corporate, and also
Yeah.
it embodies some startup values as well.
Yeah.
So actually, it's interesting where it's got the corporate similarities where it's very structured.
Yep.
So you have, it's a lot more clear if you're joining as a, let's say, product manager, you're learning the best practices to be a product manager. I think if you're in a unicorn startup, you have that framework to learn from. I think that's the good that is of a bigger startup. And the good of it also being a startup, similar to a startup, is it's because these unicorns are at most 10 years old, the ones in Indonesia, they are still figuring things out. So you still have that day one mentality where you're trying to, essentially it's still about proving hypothesis.
Yeah. You're still learning.
Yes.
We're still doing a lot of experiments.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of
Right.
experiments, a lot of proof of concept,
Yeah.
a lot of MVP. Those are very startup-like
Yeah.
concepts. Where, as compared to maybe in a bank, if oversimplifying, you typically already know what you're trying to do. You have your clientele. You have established a matured market.
True.
Your day-to-day will be very different from a company where they are still trying to disrupt the market.
Right.
So even unicorn companies like, say, Traveloka, they are in travel, but they still want to disrupt like the finance sector, insurance sector. So you always have that constant jab of innovation going on. So yes, it's got best of both, I would say.
Okay. That's
You have
interesting.
that structure and the agility of a earlier stage startup.
Wow.